My name is Melissa Stout. I'm originally from West Virginia, moved to Columbus about 1.5 years ago. Not long after living here, I was in a car accident where I was stopped in traffic and a vehicle came through an intersection and rear-ended us. That concussion left me with some optometric problems and some vestibular problems, which eventually led me to Dr. Curtis. So as time went on over the next couple months after I was in the accident, I got more and more symptoms. It was hard to see. I had really bright flashes of light, debilitating headaches. It eventually got to the point that I couldn't go to work. I couldn't keep my balance. Going in stores was difficult. I couldn't handle the lights. I couldn't drive because I couldn't handle the lights at night. During the daytime, I couldn't distinguish where cars were around me. I couldn't go and do social things. I couldn't go to the gym anymore. Basically, by the time I got to Dr. Curtis, everything that was normal about my life was gone. My quality of life basically went to none. Everything that I enjoyed, I couldn't do anymore. Even day-to-day things that people don't enjoy, like doing laundry or grocery shopping, I couldn't do that either. My neurologist referred me here to get some treatment because he trusted him and knew that he could help me. They did some CAT scans, they did some evaluations. None of that seemed to help. I was also doing vestibular therapy, which was helping the vestibular part of my problem, but even during those, they could tell that there was more going on. Mostly I was most nervous that it wouldn't work enough to really get me back to even remotely normal for me. I wasn't very nervous about the actual treatments. I felt like Dr. Curtis really made sure that I understood everything that was going to go on, but just very nervous that it wasn't going to give the results. Nothing else had. When you come in and you go downstairs and you lay on this bed, and it's a very strange feeling because it's not like anything that you've ever gone through before. You have the light box above you, and different music that you listen to, and then you do some different exercises and flexibility things for your eyes. And the first couple days were actually really therapeutic. Felt a lot better after I left. Then the middle part, like Dr. Curtis said, would be difficult, and it got really difficult really quickly. And Dr. Curtis came and talked to me and told me, I promise it will get better, and it did. So don't be discouraged if it gets hard in the middle, because it probably will, but then it does get better. And by the end, I felt like a new person. The at-home light box was really wonderful. Anytime that my symptoms got worse, I could do that, and it helped. It at least took the edge off. It was really kind of sad to bring it back and turn it back in, because it was a very nice thing to get to look at that light and get a little bit of comfort. So the different lights and different things triggered a lot of emotional feelings, excessive emotional feelings that were difficult to kind of deal with throughout the day. I also had more headaches, and I was more tired during the day. And I mean, there were some days where I'd go to my treatment, I'd go home, and I'd pretty much just hang out in the room all day because I couldn't handle being around people. I couldn't handle the lights. I couldn't handle doing anything, really. It just kind of amplified everything that we were working on, plus the emotions. I did. Support from family and friends was really very vital through all of this for a lot of reasons. One, you're going through something that is difficult, no matter if your symptoms are getting worse or not. And then the days where the symptoms were worse, they were really important to just help remind you that there's a reason that you're doing this, and that it may be hard for a little bit, but it's worth it in the end. I gained my life back, to put it in a short phrase, but specifically, I have virtually no headaches now, and when I do, they're very manageable. I can work out, I can go grocery shopping, I can do pretty much everything that I did before. I can work now. It felt really nice to be able to go back to work and have some kind of normal schedule. I can drive, which was really a nice thing to be able to not feel like I was trapped inside of my house. I can keep my balance when I walk around. There are little things, for example, nighttime driving, sometimes low beams look a little more like high beams. I am still a little more sensitive to very bright lights, a little more, I notice changes in light a little more than I did, but nothing that impairs my life to the point that I can't function. It sounds a little far-fetched when you first hear about it. It sounds like there's something there that you've never heard of before from other people, but that does not mean that it doesn't work. It's not fun at all times. It's difficult sometimes, but at the end of it, you'll feel like everything that you lost is back. And that's really the most important thing. I thought at first, before I started, that this was going to be really difficult to stick to, but it really wasn't. Especially the at-home stuff, because like I said, it made it actually seem a little better. And coming in here, you could tell such a big difference that it made it easy to do everything they said. And Dr. Curtis was very upfront with the good and bad things that may go on. So I didn't feel like there were surprises. I didn't feel like there were things that I weren't expecting that were happening. And I didn't think that it was difficult. There were a few days in the middle where it got bad that it was a little more difficult to get myself here, but it was never difficult to the point that I knew that it wasn't worth it. He was so professional and yet so caring, which is really hard to find in doctors and really in life in general. He was so thorough, and I could tell that this is genuinely his passion. He doesn't just do this, he actually cares about everything. He was so upfront and honest with everything that went on, and it made it so much more comforting to feel okay with what was going on and to feel like this could actually work. And it wasn't just the first visit. It wasn't just, oh, he was really nice the first time, but then I never saw him again, or he was never available whenever I needed him. Anytime that I had questions, anytime that I wasn't really feeling okay, he had no problem making sure that he made time to talk with me and let me know that everything was fine and that everything was going to get better. And he really put a lot of focus on follow-through, making sure that each step of the way, that everything was going the way that it should. And if it wasn't, what could he change to make things better? And I never felt like he left me high and dry. The staff here is absolutely amazing. felt completely comfortable with them every day. I didn't feel like I was just another patient walking in the room. In fact, I'm a radiation therapist, so I see patients every day. And when I went back to work, I told everyone, if we can just be as good with patients and make them feel as okay as I did, then we're doing our job.
Hi, I'm Amy Shore, and I live in Bexley, Ohio. And in February of 2015, I missed the first step coming down the stairs in my house and went headfirst down the stairs and landed on my head and ended up with a concussion. I saw several doctors and had headaches, dizziness, blurry vision, and the dizziness kept getting worse and worse. And it wasn't until I actually saw one of the doctors that treats the Blue Jackets that he recognized I had a concussion. So he sent me to vestibular physical therapy, and I did that for 4 weeks, and it wasn't getting better, and that physical therapist was the one that recognized I need Dr. Curtis. As I mentioned, I had headaches, I had blurry vision, but by far the worst thing was the dizziness, and my sense of center was off by about 10 degrees. So I was like that really bad shopping cart that kept turning and couldn't stop turning. And so I really was struggling with driving. I was very sensitive to light. I couldn't go to the grocery store anymore. I couldn't really stand fluorescent lighting at all. And it got to the point where I was not able to work full time and I wasn't functioning in my life. It was just so frustrating because I'm used to going a million miles an hour, and being debilitated on the sofa in the dark was just wasn't going to work. And so I wasn't a happy camper. Well, I hadn't heard of it, and and there isn't a lot of material out there to read about it. But I trusted the physical therapist who referred me to Dr. Curtis, and then as soon as I met him, I trusted that he could help me. But I was very nervous because, you know, the whole experience was something I'd never heard of before. So the staff was always very friendly, and very prompt, and so I really appreciated that. The first few days are the roughest. You know, as you're going through the color changing portion of the therapy, the red days, and I know you guys hear this all the time, the red days were the toughest because my symptoms actually got a little worse. But it was, you know, it didn't take a long time, and it was, and I really needed to have somebody bring me though. They are going to say to you, we recommend you have somebody drive you, and you really should. So I started feeling immediately better at the end of the 12 days, and I was functioning better. I was still pretty fluorescent light sensitive, but I could tell that my level of being able to function, especially being able to go back to work, started getting better immediately. When you're used to going a million miles an hour, you're like, really? I'm gonna sit in the bathroom and stare at this light? But I continued to get better, and it actually became calming. And I used audiobooks to help pass the time while I was doing it, and it actually became sort of a meditative time. So I probably tried to go back to full steam ahead too quickly. And so I actually, for about 6 months after the home light box therapy, continued to do some home therapy with the colored goggles and a light bulb. And so it was really a immediate improvement. I pushed myself too far, thought, oh, I must be 100%. And then I had to manage through that home therapy with the goggles and the bulb in order to get myself back on track. And I still have to really manage my environment. All of my symptoms improved. The headaches really pretty much went away. The dizziness went away for the most part. If I'm exposed to a lot of fluorescent lighting or strobe lighting, the dizziness will come back. And The only real permanent symptom is just a hearing loss. I have hearing loss in my left ear as a result of the fall. So I need more sleep than I did before, and I think it's just my brain telling me you need more downtime. And I avoid exposure to like big, wide open fluorescent light places like Home Depot and Lowe's. If I go in there, I learned from Dr. Curtis, just wear a baseball hat and or sunglasses. So sometimes I pretend I'm Sandra Bullock in the store wearing a baseball hat and sunglasses. But it helps me, I can go in the environment without having a recurrence of symptoms. For me, it helped me get my life back. I mean, I wasn't getting answers from traditional methods. You know, if you're in a situation where you're struggling to get better, by all means, you know, come see Dr. Curtis and go through the therapy, because it can really help. He was the first person who really understood what I was saying. You know, the fact I was struggling with the memory loss, or I was struggling with transposing letters in words. I've never been dyslexic, and he was the first one that helped me understand what I was going through made sense. And he was really accessible. There were times when I was on lightbox therapy that we went on vacation and I started experiencing symptoms. So he and I were texting back and forth while I was on vacation. He was telling me what I needed to, you know, better do to manage what I was going through. And so he was encouraging, and it was very comforting to me to finally have someone who understood everything that was happening.
Hi, my name is Ruth. I'm 63 years old, and I am very excited to have been given the opportunity today to speak to you about the personal therapy that I had with Dr. Curtis and his marvelous staff. In February of 2016, I was in a very, very bad automobile accident. A young girl ran a stop sign and hit me in the driver's side door, and then her car smashed against mine and trapped me inside. I suffered a lot of injuries, facial injuries from the airbag, bruises and everything from the crash, a very bad concussion, wrist, ankle, and because I had to crawl over the console to get out the passenger side, it only increased the injuries that I had gotten in the crash. I was very fortunate. After that, I started physical therapy and started many months of healing. But because of the concussion, one of the main symptoms that I had was a dizziness and a lightheadedness that was constant. It was 24 hours a day, and it directly impacted my ability to heal. I couldn't walk without help. I couldn't go up and down stairs without help. I couldn't even go out on our balcony for fear that I might fall. And it totally changed my day-to-day ability to function. It got bad enough that I wasn't even able to shower without my husband in the bathroom, and even with a prescription from my doctor for one of those little white stools that you put in, I still had to have help. So I went from a very active, productive person to literally being helpless. And while the injuries were slowly healing, the effects of the concussion and the lightheadedness and dizziness only increased. Then in the end of July, I fainted, just simply walking across the room. And I hit my head on a bookcase, which gave me a second concussion in a very short amount of time and further injured my neck. At that point, physical therapy had gotten to a point where my vestibular therapist said that there was nothing else she could do. And fortunately, she had been trained and had met the staff here at Dr. Curtis's office and understood the light therapy process to the point that she felt I would be a candidate for this procedure. So she referred me, and I came to the office for pre-testing with Alex. One of the things that I want to share with you is it's nervous. It's normal to be nervous at this point of trying to find out what might be wrong with you. And You're watching this testimonial from me because you want answers. And one of the things that I can tell you is that I hope will help your nervousness is that through the process of going through the testing, speaking with the staff, working with Dr. Curtis, and understanding the process, my nervousness actually was replaced with a feeling of empowerment. For the very first time, I felt like I was doing something that would help me find out why I was dizzy all the time. You can be told by a doctor that you have a concussion and that you have some big long medical name for your symptoms, but when they tell you we really can't do anything to help you, then you get into a spiral of just feeling helpless. And that turns into a depression or an anxiety. And in the meantime, your body's trying to heal through physical therapy and you're actually working against yourself. So I encourage you not to be nervous, but to go through the testing, get your questions answered, understand what this therapy is about, and then if you choose to go forward, do it with all your heart. My first experience here was a very positive one. I had to have help to get to the office. I had to have help walking down the hall. And Alex took me through a series of tests that are very important to establish your injuries and very important to establish, if you choose to go forward with the therapy, how the equipment is adjusted for your specific injury, because every person is different, every injury is different. This is not a cookie cutter therapy that everyone gets the same thing every day. It is very customized, very computerized, and you'll learn more about that as you go through the process. I had a 2-hour session with Alex scheduled to go through a series of, can you stand on one foot? How is your balance? How serious is your dizziness? Computer tests that are very similar to video games, where little lights come out of your peripheral vision and you hit a button. Memory tests where cards are flipped and you have to try to remember the letters and the numbers. They may not seem important, but they allow the staff to establish what's happening between your eyes and your brain, and they need that information to be able to customize the therapy. I was here for almost 3 hours for that testing. I had to have breaks. I got upset several times from frustration not being able to remember something that my 2.5-year-old granddaughter could have probably spit out just like that. Then my light therapy started, and I came to the office for 12 days, including the weekends, and someone from the staff came even on Saturday and Sunday. So you lay on the table, you have earphones on. It's not music. It's tones that are specially formulated based on the work that you do with Alex or someone else in the pre-testing, and those sounds in conjunction with the blinking lights helped my eyes reconnect with my brain and helped my dizziness completely go away. So the first 4 days, Dr. Curtis had informed me that some patients will have an increase in symptoms in the first several days. And I did over the first 4 days. My sister came from out of town. She brought me every day. I had increased dizziness. I had increased lightheadedness. But that showed me that laying on the table, having the movement, having the sound, having the lights, something was happening, because my symptoms did increase as expected. I needed help to sit up during the little break between the 2 sessions. I needed help to get off the table. I needed help to walk down the hall and get in the car. But on the 5th day, something started to change, and the symptoms started to abate. And every day through that 12-day period, they got better. And then I went to an 18-day at home. And you have a little portable box, and it only has one light, the little magenta one. And I was prescribed 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. And I have a big walk-in closet with a chair and a dresser, and I just put the little box on the dresser and took my morning coffee and sat in the dark for 20 minutes every morning. And at night, after dinner, I sat in there for 20 minutes and just watched the blinking light. When I finished my 18 days, I called the office and said, I'm through with my 18 days and it's been a great experience. Can I just go the next 7 days until my appointment? And I was told, no, there's a gap between finishing at home and coming back in for evaluation, and that's to give, I guess, your brain and everything a chance to see if where you are at the end of the 30 days, if you backslide or if anything dramatically changes before your appointment. After my 18 days, I came back into the office for my final testing with Alex first and then Dr. Curtis. What had taken me almost 3 hours the first time, this time took 45 minutes. I didn't have to rest. I didn't get frustrated. I could have beat my 2.5-year-old granddaughter at every one of those cards. And I was sitting here in the waiting room waiting for my appointment with Dr. Curtis very early, and he walked past and saw me and just got a big smile on his face because he realized that what had taken me so long before had taken me much, much, much less time. So then I met with him, and the same thing happened. I got through all of the testing, I got through everything without breaks, and the results were dramatic because the therapy worked for me, and the lightheadedness and the dizziness is completely gone. Now, I'm not struggling with anything involved with what I went through the therapy for. I'm still in therapy for my neck and for my ankle and for my wrist, but that's progressing because I'm not impacted by the inability to do the exercises and do the physical therapy for my body because my brain and eyes weren't coordinated enough for me to do it. So I guess in closing, the only advice that I would give you as a potential patient is to ask your questions, do your homework. This is not a new experimental process. This is a proven medical therapy, and there's a lot of research out there that talks about it. There's research here in the office of case studies that Dr. Curtis has done. And if you educate yourself and go into it with an open mind, you hopefully will have the same result that I did, get the answers that you need, and recover from your injuries. I hope that your injuries were not as serious as mine, but it worked for me, and I hope that it will work for you. One of the things about the experience that helped me tremendously was Dr. Curtis and his staff. Through my injuries, I have bounced from doctor to doctor and therapist to therapist and specialist to specialist. And it's always difficult in going into a new doctor-patient relationship because you have to retell your story and you're not sure exactly what's going to happen and if they're going to have any answers for you or not. I didn't have that experience in this office. I did not have that experience with Dr. Curtis or his staff. I immediately could feel the caring and the focus on me, and all my questions were answered, and a tremendous amount of time was spent on the pre-testing and the answering of the questions, and during the therapy itself. To be in the room, on the bed, in the equipment, having the lights, and knowing that someone's sitting next to you, knowing that if you had an issue, that someone is right by your shoulder and can talk you through it. The same with Dr. Curtis. I saw him multiple times during my therapy and spoke with him a few times on the phone during the 18 days. He was there, he was available, and obviously the staff has been trained to a point of professionalism that gives you the comfort that they know what they're doing and they care about you. And that's very important because as medical care in this country continues to change and be impacted through various things, it's hard sometimes to find medical professionals that are not watching the clock and are not rushing you through your appointments. The dedication and the caring that I personally experienced from Dr. Curtis and from his staff helped me heal. It did. And I cannot speak highly enough of all of them and Dr. Curtis's kindness and guidance in how badly I was hurt, and just expressing to me and to my family, we'll get her back. And they did.